That is true cracker crust. Many people not from Chicago associate it with deep dish pizza. While that assumption isn't fully wrong, the city's pizzascape is a little different. And 90% of the time, us locals eat something a wee bit thinner. Actually, a lot thinner. Imagine a cracker thin crust with perfect leopard spotting on the bottom, a little bit of cornmeal thrown in the mix, and cut into squares. Very important, squares. That is Chicago Tavern-style pizza. Let me get to the point. Today, we're gonna go over how to make Chicago Tavern-style pizza from scratch in its entirety, so you can bring a little slice of the city of Big Shoulders to your crib. But before we get to work, to ensure that we're doing Chicago proud and making this pizza correctly, I thought we'd acquire some intel from a primary source. John Carruthers has become a friend and pizza mentor of mine over the past year or so. He's a fantastic bloke and makes one of the finest tavern-style pizzas in all of Chicago, hands down. John runs a pop-up out of his garage called Crust Fund Pizza, where all the proceeds are donated to local charities. He was nice enough to let me collaborate with him and run a special to 1. Raise money for our local food pantry, and 2. Get some real-life, hands-on experience at a pizza service. Here's how it works. First off, you get lucky on Instagram, you buy a ticket, then you donate to the charity that John decides on, then you drive to the designated address, pull up to the garage with the mysterious whiskey barrel out front, then grab your pizza and beer. Yep, alley pizza is good pizza. John taught me a technique that took my original idea of tavern-style dough and bumped it up to level 100, and it has to do with something called curing the dough, which we're gonna go over here in a second. The white pie that you're seeing here was my special. It was a 3 peppercorn creme fraiche, sauteed Swiss chard, and speck joint. Speck is basically just smoked prosciutto, and it went very nicely with the creme fraiche. We're not gonna make it today, but I will include the recipe over on my website in the post for this video.
Baked up all around. Like, that is beautiful.
The recipe and technique that you're going to see in this video for the original tavern-style pizza is either borrowed directly from or closely informed by John and his research. So thanks, John, you're a beast. And also, thank you to everybody who came out to support the event. It was really fun, really nice. Great to meet y'alls. All right, now let's make some pizza. The sauce for tavern-style pizza is cooked, rich, and robust. And that's because it needs to be flavorful and tangy enough to stand up to the meaty, cured, spicy toppings. Let's make it. Over the past decade or so, San Marzano tomatoes have hit the mainstream, which is awesome because it's easy to get great canned tomatoes now, but it's also not totally necessary. Italian pizza makers tout the tomatoes that grow in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius to be the best in the world. While the Italian imported San Marzano tomato is fantastic, you're totally okay using other brands and varieties too. If you have a canned tomato brand that you trust, maybe something that's local, super high quality, then use it. That's really all there is to it. To a medium sauce pot over medium heat, melt in unsalted butter and olive oil. Once melted, add in your minced garlic and simmer for about 30 seconds until you can really smell it without bending down face first into the pot. Scoop up your tomato paste and slap that in, cooking for another minute. Now, this little stash of dried herbs are thyme, oregano, basil, marjoram, and chili flake. It's a little Italian mix I threw together. Go ahead and add those right on top of the tomato paste. Then add in your salt, sugar, red wine vinegar, and canned tomatoes. Give that all a stir, then bring it up to a simmer on low heat and allow to simmer for 25 minutes, lid on. Just a heads up, the sauce is pretty thick and tends to sputter everywhere, so that lid part is pretty important. Don't forget it. I like to ensure that the sauce is super smooth by blitzing it up with either an immersion blender or just, use a regular blender if that's what you have.
Secret ingredient.
Lastly, finish with a teaspoon or 2 of fish sauce. Yes, fish sauce. If incorporated properly, you should not taste its fishiness, but only the punch of umami that it brings. I mean, think about it. Nonas have been adding anchovies in Sunday sauce for decades and decades and decades. This isn't much different. Transfer all that sauce to a resealable container and set it aside until we need it. You can do this up to 5 days in advance. Alright, next up, let's talk about the oh so important
Tavern-style dough. This is really what sets the pizza style apart. Now, John's recipe calls for using one of these things, a food processor. Lots of us have this, however, I understand many of us don't. But yes, you can use a stand mixer or even do it by hand, and I will provide examples and text and technique how to do that over on the website.
Attach the dough blade to the food processor. A normal blade works if you don't have one for dough. Then pour in your room temperature water and olive oil. Then our bread flour and cornmeal. And I found that adding wet ingredients before the dry, usually, mixes together a little more efficiently than the other way around. Run the processor until a mass of dough forms and it begins to ride the blade of the stand mixer. Once it does, count to 30 seconds, then stop the machine and walk away.
Just walk away.
Let it rest for 20 minutes. Next, free the dough from the blade, add in your instant yeast, and process for another 30 seconds, then cut it again and walk away, letting it rest for another 20 minutes.
He's pretty good.
Finally, free the dough from the blade one last time, add in your kosher salt and sugar, then run the machine, you guessed it, for another 30 seconds. This time we do not have to wait for it to rest. Plop the dough on a clean countertop, portion le dough into 4 equal pieces around 295 grams each. Lube the balls and the inside of a resealable container with olive oil, then plop each portion inside. Allow the dough to rest at room temperature for 30 minutes before refrigerating for up to 1 week. For the sake of the video, I have a batch of pre-made dough ready to rock. Be sure to remove the dough from the fridge at least 2 hours before you want to roll it out, otherwise it's going to be a nightmare. To roll it out, this time you're going to want to lightly dust your work surface with flour to keep the dough from sticking, because yes, we are going to roll the dough out. Now, some pizza makers consider rolling out dough to be a sin, but those people have probably also never made tavern-style pizza. I mean, how else are we supposed to get the pizza so thin? It's either a rolling pin or a dough sheeter. And I'm willing to bet many shillings that you do not have a dough sheeter in your crib. I mean, I know I don't. So we're going to use a large rolling pin to apply even pressure, applying a light dusting of flour when needed. Make sure to roll the dough out into nice, perfect circles that should be 14 to 15 inches long. Once all of the dough is rolled out, we can't forget one crucial step. Very crucial.
A really important thing to do with tavern-style dough is called docking. Just another way to say poking holes in the dough, which is going to keep it from rising too much because remember, we want a thin cracker crust. If you don't have one of these fancy docker things, just use a fork.
Dock each piece of dough all over, front and back, then just lay them on a large sheet tray lined with parchment, sandwiching each piece between more parchment to keep them from sticking together. Remember when I was telling you about that thing that John taught me that made my pizza a lot better? Well, this is it. We need to allow the docked dough to rest overnight in the fridge to cure. Doing so is going to help drive out unwanted moisture and keep things from rising too much. Remember, we don't want that thin crust pizza, we want that cracker thin crust pizza. Now, keep in mind the dough starts to get wonky if left to cure in the fridge for more than a day, so plan accordingly. This extra step might seem like a lot for the impatient pizza maker, but I can't stress its importance. Cure the dough. Do you want to be good, or do you want to be great? Come on. Okay, finally, the day has come to bake our zaz. The good news is that this style of pizza is not dependent on live fire. It's made in commercial ovens, and lucky for us, we can equip our home ovens to be quite similar.
In order to make our oven pizza friendly, we really need to make sure that we have the right gear for the job, right? So here I have a pizza stone. It's a heavy piece of ceramic that you basically charge with heat in the oven. I used this for years. This is brand new to me. This is something that John told me about. It's a baking steel. And yeah, this thing is like literally 25 pounds. I mean, I think it's more than that. According to John, and I've seen this firsthand, this blisters the bottom of the crust a lot better than this. However, I understand these are kind of like two specialty items, and if you're gonna make pizza at home, I do recommend picking these up, but you can also use a sheet tray if you don't have any of this stuff.
If you don't have a steel or a stone, a large sheet tray can get the job done just fine. You can use it as both the pizza stone and the pizza peel. Just do the same things that I do in the next steps with the tray if you're using it. Before you do anything, preheat your oven to 550 degrees Fahrenheit, or 500 if your oven doesn't go any higher. Then pop your pizza steel on the middle rack of your oven, close her up, and allow the whole thing to charge with heat for at least 1 hour before baking pizza. Now, my kitchen isn't necessarily built for baking pizzas, and if you're in a similar boat, I suggest you take precaution. Close bedroom doors, open windows, and a makeshift box fan is a decent band-aid if you don't have a good hood vent. Today we're going to use whole milk mozzarella for our pizzas. It has a full, rich taste, fantastic stretchability, and browns at the perfect rate for this style of pizza. Most of the time, you're going to buy this in loaf form, either pre-wrapped in plastic and in a fridge somewhere, or you can go up to the deli guy and ask him to slice off a nice loaf for you. Either way, shred it up on a box grater, then put it in a container and keep it at the ready. To build the pizzas, we're going to line our pizza peels, or sheet tray if you're using it, with a pinch of fine cornmeal. Then lay a piece of the cured dough right on top. Dock the dough one more time on the peel, then plop on some of our cooled pizza sauce and spread thinly, edge to edge. As John would say, get Icarus close to the edge. Tavern-style pizza has a lot of charms, but cornicione isn't one of them. Wise words. Then sprinkle on the mozz all over the top there. For this pizza, we're gonna go for a Chicago classic of hot Italian sausage and giardiniera, both of which I have instructional recipe videos for, so you can go ahead and check those out if you'd like. I'll go ahead and leave a link somewhere. But, you know, feel free to add whatever toppings you'd like to your pizza. I mean, after all, this is your pizza, you know, do your thing. Oh, and if you can't already tell, I like my sausage jumbo. My girlfriend would argue that those sausages are more akin to meatballs, but yeah, I like them kind of big. Let me know what you like in the comments below. Go ahead and spoon over however much or little giardiniera you'd like. Just be sure to drain off most of that oil. A little bit's okay on there, but you don't want like a ton of oil on the pizza. Finish with a little more mozzarella and a light grating of Parmigiano Reggiano over the top, and boom, that, my friends, is an oven-ready Chicago tavern-style pizza. Before you launch the pizza, go ahead and give it a couple of shakes just to make sure that it's not stuck to the peel. This is where the cornmeal comes in. So launching the pizza can take a little bit of practice. Just go ahead and aim for the back of the pizza steel, and once the dough touches down, smoothly pull the pizza peel back, sliding the za right onto the surface. Don't worry if you screw it up, everybody's got to do it a few times before they get it right, so just do your best. At the 8-minute mark, go ahead and rotate that pizza, then let it finish cooking. Remove the pizza from the oven and allow it to cool for a few minutes on a wire rack before slicing. The wire rack is just going to help keep things from sogging out. If properly cooked, the cheese should be browned, the bottom nice and charry with some spots, and the crust mega crunchy.
That is true cracker crust. Between the cornmeal, that like super crunchy texture on the pizza, the big chunky toppings, the robust sauce, and the charred edges, to me, in my book, this pizza has it all. Zam! These corner pieces never make it to the table. They're always eaten in the box, so in honor of that. You gotta go check out my boy John. He does Crust Fund pizza drops monthly. So if you find yourself in town, hit him up on the gram. You might just find yourself in the possession of a very rare and potentially even the city's best pizza. It's a big statement, but I'm gonna say it. Also, as usual, if you guys try to make this, shoot me a picture of what you made on Instagram. I love seeing your creations. Thank you a bajillion times over for watching. If you dug the video, got value out of it, are gonna make a tavern-style pizza of your own, give it a like, sub to the channel if you're new, all that good stuff, and we will see you very shortly. Want to try it?
Yeah.